Hey there everybody, David Art Becker here with BeckerArt, and today I want to talk to you about transfer paper and graphite paper. There are a little bit of a difference between graphite paper and transfer paper, but it's paper that you use to transfer your drawing of a photograph onto your watercolor paper. And let me just show you what I'm talking about. So there are a couple different kinds of transfer paper and graphite paper, and so let me show you right here that graphite paper Graphite paper is this down here, this Sorel. They make more of a graphite paper, and this is erases. So the difference between transfer paper and the graphite paper is the graphite paper just basically has graphite on it, and so you can erase it like a pencil. And you put it underneath your black and white photo, or if you even have a color one, it doesn't matter. And you're just basically tracing. But I'm going to show you how to use that tracing and even learn how to draw by doing the tracing. And so there's also, this is transfer paper by Jack Richardson. Comes in a roll, as you can see right here, comes in a big roll. You can make it, this is like 2 feet wide and about, I don't know how many feet long. It's like 24 feet long. So you got to do something really big tracing. Anyways, that's transfer paper and graphite paper. Now this one I just saw on Amazon. I just purchased this, and they're saying that this is a graphite transfer paper that's not waxy, because one thing about the transfer paper is that it's waxy. It's like carbon paper, and you cannot erase it. And which I use in my classes because I don't want it to be smeary, because sometimes graphite paper tends to be very smudgy when you're putting it down. So let me show you really quickly how I use this and how I work it. Also comes in packs and stuff. You can get it like at Michael's, and also one thing I have to mention, that it does come in white too for those of you that do black paper. And this is more of a, I think, a graphite or a white powder type of thing put on this. So this is not waxy, but you can use it on black paper. But let me just show you how you use this. And also you can actually make your own by just taking a woodless pencil or a carbon pencil, graphite pencil I mean, and then taking the back so this is our painting what we're doing this week, and I just want to show you how we're gonna put it. But you can also take the back of it and then rub this graphite pencil all through here, and see how I'm just rubbing it on the back. And so you can make your own graphite paper by just doing this. And actually, if you want, you can look at the front and actually do this on a light box, and only put this graphite down where you are going to be drawing. Like on this picture, for instance, you would just put it right behind the feathers and the geese. Like, you're not going to do anything back here, so why put the graphite on there? And so just, you would take this to a light box and then take it, you can see through it, and you just kind of, put the graphite down. And so that's one way of putting it onto your paper too. So anyways, here's my watercolor paper, and I want to get this image down to onto this paper, because our drawing has to be perfect. And so I can tape this down, you can tape this down around it. I'm not going to tape it because it'll be fine. And so I'm saying this only because I'm doing this only because I want to show you that sometimes, to learn how to draw, it takes a lot to do that. And so this also can help you. And my students, I want them to have a good photograph and a good drawing onto their paper before they start watercoloring, because it's so important to get a good drawing in there. So what you can do is you take this, I think this is transfer paper. And so what I can do is first put down the transfer paper. Let's get this sheet. And you got to make sure that the black side is down. This is side that's not where, don't put that up on this way, because the black side goes down on your watercolor paper, so that you don't draw it onto the back of this image. You don't want to do that. And that's if you don't want to do it with graphite, with a graphite stick. They sell graphite sticks, woodless pencils, and even a regular 3B, 6B pencil. You can just, take it and rub on the back and just put it down. So I'm going to take this black side down onto your paper. Then I take the image that you have to get to size. You want to maybe go to Office Max or whatever, make it print it a little bit bigger, or on your printer. Sometimes you can do 2 pictures if you need a bigger painting, a bigger drawing. You can take and tape the things together and let the printer print it out in 2 sets. And so that's one way of doing it. So then what I do is, now a lot of people just go ahead and trace, right? They just go in there and trace it and never think about what they're actually doing in drawing. So what I'm saying is to you is that you want to make this, pretend like you're drawing it from like freehand, and look at what you're doing. And like last week's, I talked about working large to small, right? Always work large areas first, draw in large areas first, indicate big things on the drawing. So if you do that with your black and white sketch or your photo, or even if it's a colored photo, that's fine. What I like to do is I like to find my center first. And so I took a ruler beforehand and I put it across here, find this point, I'll put a line over there, and I'll go like that, and do the one this way. And I found my center point, which happens to be right here. And so that's just good to know. And just look, I always like to see what it is. Then I also look at the big, again, I divide it in half, and so I know half is here and here. Now, I don't want to draw this on there. Don't draw that on there because you're going to put that on your paper. We don't want that. But in your mind, you just think, where are these places? Because that's important when it comes to drawing and proportionally putting your photo onto the paper freehand. You need to know those things, and that's a good way of doing it. So even when you're tracing, I like to see, where those things are. And then it'll help you later on when you're doing without the paper. So here I'm going to go and I'm just going to start going across looking for my big shapes. What is my big shapes? And this is the painting again. This is the painting we're doing this coming Thursday. And so I look at the bottom of the swan. It's kind of it's almost lined up with this back thing. So I'm going to start out here, just kind of pressing down. I'm using my woodless pencil. I can also use it for, just putting down here. And I'm also using it so that you can see where I'm putting my darks in there. Otherwise, I just sometimes use a pen on this. Just use a pen on your transfer paper. That way it's blue or a black that goes right on top of your image here. And so here is like, I'm just going to go across straight. And you notice how I'm not like I'm actually like I'm sketching. I'm kind of like sketching it, going underneath there, putting a little pressure on there. That's one big line. Then this angle right here, so there's my angle of the thing that I always kind of look at. So a little bit above this, I'm just going to kind of put in some of the feathers here. I'm just going to kind of put it in, knowing that's a big shape. And then I can also just get each feather separately. That's a big shape. Again, always go for the big shapes, none of the little stuff, because this will help you then when you go to find out when you're doing it freehand without tracing it, that's the way you you look for things. Look for big shapes that you can come across. So look at this shape, the back wing to this wing. That's almost one big shape right there, right? And it almost hits the top of this swan's head. So I'm just going to put a line in there and just kind of put that in there. And this goes right to this one. And again, this is kind of like helping you when it comes to learning how to draw freehand so that you work for the big parts. I see sometimes people when they're sketching out their drawing, they're getting so detailed with things right from the get-go. They'll do this head and they'll really put everything in there. And how do they know that's placed in the right area? So this is about 1/3 in, and so that's a little bit almost 1/3 and 1/3 here. So I can see that, and so if I'm going to do the freehand, I know that when my paper is that divided, I would know where to put this. And so another big shape is right down here, the back. It's got almost on the thirds. Take that down here. And then the back of his body is also a big shape. And you notice I don't go in there really detail and try to figure it out, all the details yet. No, I wait for that until later. So I've got my big line, this coming across. The back of the whole back here, where there's like a little shore here, just gonna put a little line there just to kind of put that in there. And then we do have the back of this bird here. Now this is a little bit more detailed now, and so I will get, and when I'm doing these big areas, I am gonna try to put them in to look like what they are in the photo. Now his head I have to be a little bit more careful with. That's a big shape. And that you would, if you're sketching it, I'm looking here, there's about 1/3. So it's a little bit farther past this way, 1/3. And now I'm just going to go in here and just get the drawing. And I try to make it feel like I'm sketching and not that I'm tracing. I want to get the feeling of like what I would do if I didn't have the paint underneath there, because it's basically drawing. And I want to make it look like it's drawn. And it's making you realize where things are at. And again, this is because there's not so many big, huge areas. Like when you're doing the building, last week we did buildings, so there's a lot of lines, straight lines all around. This one, there's not as many straight lines, but there are big shapes. like big shapes, and the back of this head kind of lines up with the bottom of this wing. So I'm putting that in there. You know, I keep on measuring back and forth from things to see where things are at. Like the top of that head was there, you know, and I'm not thinking about detail. Don't think about detail until the end. And even though I'm tracing, I could do all the details first and stuff. I could just start here and just do that. But give yourself a little bit of a chance to learn how to draw by tracing, because then it'll give you that feel of what you need to look for. Like here, the neck right here, just taking that down. That's about halfway in between the top of this. You know, then you get smaller and smaller till we get to the details, and that's when you then can go in, and then you'd have the big picture anyways. You know, right? If you're freehanding it, you need these big areas. And also, if there's something on the bird like here, or on the swan, if you feel that it needs to be changed, now's the time to change it. It's like, I think this feather I wanted to come out a little bit farther, so I'm just going to put another little line there just to make the feather come out, like his wing come out a little bit. And also, if you want to maybe do something that, if there's a tangent or something, change it now while you're doing it on a drawing. Don't copy something that doesn't look good. You know, if there's a tangent or something in the picture that you're drawing in the photo it's not right, don't draw that in. That doesn't make sense. Take it out or leave it out, and then try to change it. And maybe sometimes first change it on your drawing before you do this part where I'm getting it to the paper. So if I also, when you're doing the first mark, and I should have done that, I should have showed you that, you should look and see if it's working. So see, I've got my drawing, and so the drawing will be really nice. You know, it'll give a feel of drawing. And now I can go in there and get details, like here's a little chickie back here, and I gotta watch it, because if I'm using this is a this paper or this transfer paper doesn't erase. So I don't want to put it where the white parts are. Like I know I did put it right here, but that's okay. I can put white paint on there or masking fluid, but for practicing it's fine. But if you're doing something that's real and you don't want a black line there and that you can't erase, you don't want to put it into a spot where, like, this little chickie has a little bit of fuzz around him. I don't want to draw that fuzz because I'm gonna have black all on my paper. So you have to watch out for stuff like that. And or use a graphite paper, because graphite paper, or do that with the graphite stick and rub it on the back, because that is just graphite, and that you can erase. That is totally fine to erase. And so now I'll go in there and I'll get each one of these little, you know, and this really helps when it comes to, you know, tracing. Then you don't have to worry so much about exactly. But here I'm getting each exact wing like it is in a photograph. Where if I did this freehand, I probably wouldn't get it exactly like this. But again, I'm just going to sketch it. And some of this I'm not going to even put in. Just enough to know where things are at. I don't do reflections in the water. I feel that is going to be too hard line, especially with all this white that's in here. I don't do the line. You could put it in there, but what I suggest is to do the big parts like this first. Get all the big parts in, take this off, and then take your graphite pencil, and then you can do, and look at the picture and do a little bit of freehand too. Because here, then you can just use the graphite, and this comes off, and you can then put in extra things that you missed, or, you know, just put in stuff that they shouldn't have been put in with the dark that you have to erase. I do that sometimes when I feel like I need to get in here and I know I'm going to have to erase it, but I need to know where that part of that picture is. So pencil graphite when you want to erase it. Transfer paper, the transfer paper is the one that you can't erase, but graphite paper is called graphite paper, and that's okay to erase with. And so those are the two types of transfer papers. And I suggest that you try, when you do the drawing, and do it like this, and you're tracing the photo, don't do things where, like if this sky was a sky with white clouds, you wouldn't want to put the black line around the white cloud, because again, that would not come off. And even if it does come off, I suggest that you don't do those things, because you can paint that. You don't have to, and you can take the paper off and do, let's say there was clouds in here, I could really lightly put in where the clouds are going to be with a pencil, so I can erase it later after I do the watercolor. But again, when you're putting and tracing, think of the halfway point, think of the thirds, and think of the big marks first. Do it like you would actually do the drawing if you're doing your freehand. And I've had a lot of students do this, and it helps them out when it comes to doing the freehand, because then you start realizing the picture as a whole, as all together, and not just by piece, and hopefully placing them in the right spot. Like when you're doing these big areas, like you did the underneath here and here, then you know that that's the same as in the photo, and there's the big line. That way, you know you're putting the puzzle together pretty accurately. You're putting it nice and accurate. You know where things are halfway. And again, I know you're tracing it, but it will help you then later on down the line. And I've had it help some students, and it just, of course, you need to do some freehanding stuff a lot of times and just do sketching. And I actually, like I said, I'm coming out with a book on how to learn how to do freehand sketching, and also from your imagination that you're looking at it and just going from and memorizing these shapes. All right, so that is our little lesson for today, and about how to trace with graphite paper or transfer paper, and making it so that you learn how to draw too at the same time. So, and the number one most important thing about drawing, about watercolor and any kind of painting really, is a drawing. Drawing is number one in my things of importance to what you need to have in your paper correctly. So now this will be ready for painting, and we're going to be painting this on Thursday night. I'll be doing a paint along. So if you haven't never seen my paint alongs, I do them every Thursday night at 6:30 Central Standard Time. I do them on YouTube Live, and you can ask these questions when I'm doing the painting. And then you can also, when you're done and you want to do it, you can do it as long as you want, anytime you want, because the video will be up there forever. All right, so transfer paper, if you are tracing, trace as if you're drawing freehand. All right, and so until next time, we'll see you then. Bye-bye.